The laughter echoed through the sleek glass corridors of Davis and Kent Enterprises, a company where polished shoes and expensive suits walked past the unseen hands that cleaned up after them. And one of those unseen hands was Tom Sanders, the night janitor. Tom was quiet, in his 50s, with gentle eyes that always smiled even when his back didn't. Every night, while executives went home to their comfortable lives, Tom mopped floors and emptied trash cans, humming softly to himself. What most people didn't know was that Tom wasn't always a janitor. Once, he'd been an engineer until his wife's illness drained their savings, and life forced him to start over. He never complained. He never pitted himself. He just worked, with dignity. One Friday evening, a group of young employees was hanging around the break room, joking around as they planned a prank. "Let's set the janitor up on a blind date," one of them snickered. "With who?" another laughed. "What girl would even? What if we tell him it's a real date and send him to meet someone fancy?" The laughter grew louder. Someone joked, "How about Ms. Rachel Kent, our new CEO? She's having dinner alone at the charity gala tonight." And somehow, the joke spiraled into a plan. They told Tom that a woman named Rachel, kind, smart, and looking for good company, wanted to meet him at the hotel restaurant that evening. Tom hesitated. He hadn't been on a date since his wife passed away 6 years ago. But something in him, maybe hope, maybe loneliness, made him say yes. He wore his only clean dress shirt, polished his worn shoes, and carried a single daisy from the park outside. Meanwhile, at the Grandview Hotel, CEO Rachel Kent was attending the company's annual charity dinner. She was known for being poised, confident, and direct, the kind of leader who could command a room with just her presence. When Tom walked in, heads turned. At first, people thought he was lost. A janitor in an old suit among tuxedos and pearls. But Tom smiled politely and walked toward Rachel's table, where the pranksters were secretly watching from another corner, trying not to burst out laughing. He gently placed the daisy on the table. "Good evening, ma'am. Are you Rachel?" Rachel blinked in confusion, then realization dawned. Someone had set him up. The room had gone awkwardly silent. But instead of laughing, Rachel stood up. She looked around the room, her sharp eyes scanning the smirking faces. Then she smiled softly at Tom. "Yes," she said. "I'm Rachel. Please, have a seat." The entire room froze. They talked for over an hour. Tom told her about his late wife, how he'd lost everything but never gave up. He spoke with humility and humor, the kind of honesty that made every word feel heavy and real. Rachel listened, not as a CEO, but as a human being. When dinner ended, she stood up and addressed everyone in the hall. "I'd like to thank my date tonight," she said, looking at Tom with genuine warmth. "Because he reminded me of something many of us forget, that worth has nothing to do with titles or paychecks. It's measured by kindness, by resilience, by heart." The pranksters lowered their heads in shame. A week later, a company-wide email stunned everyone. Tom Sanders was being promoted not as a janitor, but as the new facilities manager, a role Rachel personally created for him. In her note, Rachel wrote, "Leadership isn't about who sits in the corner office. It's about those who lift others up even when no one's watching." Months passed. The laughter that once mocked Tom turned into respect. And every morning, he still carried a daisy in his shirt pocket, not as a memory of humiliation, but as a symbol of how a single act of compassion can turn cruelty into change. Because sometimes, the smallest people in the biggest buildings have the greatest hearts of all. Moral: kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. Never judge someone by their job, clothes, or title. You never know what strength hides behind a humble smile.